Okay, Vinom Adonai Eloheinu Aleinu Ma'aseh Adenu Konena Aleinu Ma'aseh Adenu Konena. We'll continue the shiur on Shaare Orah. We're on page Rish Yud Dalet. We're on the bottom of the page. Zochrenu Lechaim. Obviously, we're still talking in the Sphira of the Yesod. We're talking about the El Shaddai. We're talking about El Chai. So here he's talking about Zochrenu Lechaim. What is this concept that we say on the holidays? Zochrenu Lechaim Melech Hafetz Chaim Kotver b'Sefer Chaim Nema'anach Elohim Chaim. Hakadosh Baruch Hu mechadesh et mitziut b'chol shana v'shana. It says over here that God is renewing. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is renewing the reality of the world from year to year. I'm a little confused about that because in the Tefillah we say Hamhadesh b'chol yom tov ma'aseh bereshit. So that seems like it's every day. Here it says every year. So I'm not exactly clear how to connect those two together. Maybe he'll explain it a little bit later. And because we say Zochrenu Lechaim, we raise up the koach, the power of the zikaron, of the memory of the zikaron, this concept of zikaron, ba'olam. Okay? And what's the purpose? To connect the world to its shoresh. The shoresh, of course, being the Ein Sof.
What world?
All the worlds.
Sure.
All the worlds. Okay, because there's a separation between the Shekhinah and Kucha B'Richu, right? There's a separation. Since the destruction of the temple, that separation is bigger. When we do mitzvot, Torah mitzvot, ma'asim tovim, what are we doing? We're reconnecting Kucha B'Richu u'Shchintei. Once we make that connection, assuming there's no other areas where there needs to be connection, therefore we're connected to the Ein Sof. We're connected to the Ein Sof. We understand that there's another break in the connection. That there's a separation that Amalek caused, that only Hashem is going to fix that one. Okay? And that's when the Mashiach comes, that separation will be fixed. But it's not a complete separation, so therefore there's ability to be transmission. But the goal is that we connect Kucha B'Richu U'Shchintei, and through that we're able to, that's called It'aruta Letata, that's called rising from below, where we connect the Kucha B'Richu U'Shchintei, and that allows us to get Shefa. Yes, that's the whole concept of connection. Continuing on, and why Zochrenu Lechaim? Once again, what is Chaim? Chaim is Shefa. It's abundance. Yes, it's connection. Yes, a person who is connected to God is alive. A person who is not connected to God is dead, even if they are still breathing. Where do we learn that from? What pasuk? Those of you who are attached yourself to Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Elokechem, Hayim Kulechem Hayom. You were alive today. You are alive, which means dvekut. When a person is connected, then they are alive. If a person is disconnected, then they are dead or dying. It's really not alive and dead. It's really more life and more death. That's really what it is. So a person is making mitzvot. He's connecting to Hashem. He has more life. A person making avonot. He has more death. Okay, it's not a static factor. It's a dynamic factor.
You can get connected and disconnected all the time.
Yeah, it is correct. So every person is going up or going down. There's no helicopters in the spiritual world. There's no such thing as hovering. If a person is hovering, they're falling. Okay?
Birds too.
What's that?
The birds too are falling if they don't.
Well, birds have a unique ability to stay flying, but we don't fly. We either rise up or we sink. Yeah, there's no yeah. Okay. Ufi kama she'adam kashur l'shorosh hachayim hu nikra chai. Now the rabbi is going to say what I just said. And according to how much the person is attached, is kashur to the shorosh of chayim, to the root of life, yes, he is called chai. The more, we just said that, dvekim. What is dvekim? The person who's attached is alive, yes? The more a person is alive, the more they're attached, the more they're alive. Kabel chaim, and they receive chaim. Shema'aseh Shema'aseh Adam milemata me'orel lemala. He just said it'aruta dilatata, right? That the ma'aseh of Adam, of man, below, me'orer, rises up, lemala, goes up. Yes, that's the whole concept of tefillah. What did it say about tefillah? Tefillah is ole lashamayim. Tefillah goes up to the shamayim. The goal of our tefillot is that they are going up to the shamayim, that there's nothing preventing them from rising up and going to the shamayim. Okay? Ooh, he's going to quote Rav Sadok, Miluvlin HaKohen. Wow, wow, wow. שמעשה אדם מלמטה מעורר למעלה, כמו שכתב שביאר רבי צדוק בספר רסיסי לילה. Rav Tzadok Miluvlin. He has a number of svarim. He's a Hasidic rabbi 200 years ago, and he has some phenomenal sefer. One book he has is Pri Tzadik. Wow, I encourage everybody to. It's not, unfortunately, not translated in English, but his erudition is unbelievable. It brings from everywhere: Kabbalah, Midrash, Halacha, you name it. And it gives you some amazing ideas. It's incredible. So he has another book called Resise Laila, and in that book, what does it say? Amru Chazal, our rabbis taught. Shi'aleh zichronchem lefanai letova ubama b'shofar. So the goal of Rosh Hashanah is to make the zikaron, not that Hashem forgets, he never forgets, but speaking in the language of man once again, right? In the language of man, we understand, we remember, we forget, we remember, we forget. God doesn't forget anything, right? But in speaking the language of man, this concept of we want to rise up the zikaron, okay? Lefanai, before Hashem, which means God says, I want you on Rosh Hashanah to cause me to remember you. Okay, not that Hashem needs a reminder, he doesn't, okay? But speaking in the language of man, I want you to cause me to remember you. And how are you going to do that? And letova, you could be remembered, a person could be remembered, not letova, that's also NG, right? You want to be remembered letova. How do you do that? Bashofar. The shofar is what allows our zikaron to be remembered letova. Hakol echad, ki Hashem tzilicha. And of course it's for us. No, he has no needs. That's correct. It's always for us. He has desire, he has ratzon, but he has no needs. Tell me about it. I mean, there's a person that I know that gives a lot of speeches and a lot of talks, and he talks about the needs of God. You know, I think he probably understands what he's talking about, but I don't think the people he's talking to understand what he's talking about. So one has to be very careful what words you use when you describe these esoteric concepts, right? So we don't talk about the needs of God. Ratzon. Nowhere, again, the concept is tzorach gavoa. That's the words that he's trying to explain. It's, if you translate it literally, it's the need of above, but it's not the need of above. It's the ratzon of above. And the ratzon of above is to create a world that has deficit. And why is that the ratzon of above, to create a world that has deficit, so that we can fill that we can remove that deficit? That is correct. Okay, even in the time of the temple, there was still mitzvot to be done when we were unifying the Shekhinah. Yes, what's the difference when the temple is standing and when the temple is not standing? When the temple is standing, it's easier to unify Kudsha B'chu Shechintei. When the temple is not standing, it's more difficult, more challenging to unify Kudsha B'chu Shechintei. We understand that all year long, it is more difficult to unify Kudsha B'chu Shechintei, but on the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, it is easier to do that, right? That's the concept of Dirshu Hashem B'Himatzeo. Look for, search out for God when he can be found. What do you mean when he can be found? He can always be found. It says, Kira'uhu biyoto karov. Call out to him when he is close. What does that mean? We say in the Tehillim, Karov Adonai lechol kore'av lechol asher yikra'uhu be'emet. So we understand that God is close to anyone who calls him in truth. That's what we say in Ashrei. Yes? So what's the difference on the holidays? During the year, it's more difficult. It requires more effort on the part of the lower us to connect. On the Aseh Met Teshuvah, it requires less effort.
We start. I don't know. I don't see it in many of our sidurim. In mine, it is. You know, that we need to connect the down to the up. You know,
That's the whole purpose of tefillah.
yeah. But if you don't read it, you are not gonna get the connection, right?
Well, you might get the connection. Again, the more kavanah a person has, what is the juice that gets the person's tefillah to go to the Shamayim? What's the juice?
Your emunah.
The kavanah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant the kavanah.
So the more kavanah a person has, the more juice it is to go to the Shamayim. Good? Person's not paying attention, then there's no juice. It stays in this world.
Tefillah is secondary. The shortage.
Okay, continue on inside here.
In each of the tefillah, in each of the tefillot is there the Shem Yehud Kucha very good. In it, this one has it, but I see many of these sidurim don't even.
Then pick a sidur that speaks to you.
Huh?
Don't use a sidur that doesn't speak to you.
Wow, you got 2-0 today.
Listen, a person, some people, they're satisfied playing a piano that's a bad one. And a person who's a true pianist only is going to play in a piano that costs a lot of money, right? Why? Because they can the music that they're playing can be better expressed through a better kli. So the sidur a person uses should be matching what they're looking to accomplish from the tefillah. Yes? Person is satisfied with the Shiloh or an art scroll, regular art scroll, not the Sephardic art. Even the Sephardic art scroll, it's good, but it's not the same as this one of yours. It's not the same. And then there's other lists. I have another Sidur at home called Oza Tefillah. It has lots of kavanot. And then you can get the one that I have for the holidays, which has a page per word. A page per word. You never saw that one? I'll have to bring you one of these days, lean out there. It's crazy.
Dan uses one.
What's that? It's a machzor for each tefillah. So in Kippur, it's 5 volumes. 5 volumes. Shahrit is a volume. Minha is a volume. Musaf is a volume. Arbit is a volume. Ne'ilah is a volume. It's amazing. And especially in the first bracha, where that's the most important place to have kavanah, we have to understand. It's interesting where the kavanot are different between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. Okay. Connected to what we're talking about here on Rosh Hashanah, the most kavanot are in the words Koneh HaKol. What is Koneh HaKol? The owner of everything. Why? Because that's Rosh Hashanah. What is Rosh Hashanah? Hayom Hara. Koneh. No, he's the owner of everything every time. But on Rosh Hashanah, especially one has to focus on Koneh HaKol, that Hashem is the owner of everything, because that's the day Hayom Harat Olam. This is the day of the creation of the world. Yeah. So therefore, that day one has to focus on what? Has to focus on Koneh HaKol. Okay. I'll give you another beautiful thing from Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan that you can use every single day. We say Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen. Why do we say Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen? Why? Tell me the difference between those 4 terms. Let's go. Let's start with the first one. Melech.
King. Monarchy.
Thank you.
Michelle. Well.
What's the Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen? What are those 4 words giving
Melech
us?
is the Moshel, is the executor.
Okay.
Shield.
What is the quality of a melech?
Speaks to the people, speaks to God as the conduit between both.
Everybody's a messenger. What is the quality of a melech vis-a-vis me?
That he has no
Vis-a-vis
free
me
will.
individually.
Or me.
Does the melech know me as a person?
Yes.
I'm not talking about God. I'm talking about a typical melech.
He's responsible
Well,
for you,
don't
but
you
he
make
doesn't
the
know
man-
you.
Okay, let's bring it to modern day. Well, he's a president. He's not a melech. Let's just understand. In the United States, a president is almost the equivalent of a melech, right? Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump doesn't know me personally. I have no personal relationship with him. My relations with him is as a subject, as a eved, as a taxpayer. That's how we use the word in a free country, right? As a taxpayer. In a kingdom, you are eved. Eved has no relationship with the king close. It's a distant relationship. The king protects the eved. Yes, the eved serves the king. So there's a relationship, but there's a distance in that relationship.
Between the king and the community.
Correct. Now I'm talking as an individual. Ozer. What is the word ozer? That's a closer relationship. Why? Because if a person is giving me ezra, assistance, it's directed to me as an individual. The king is basically protecting everyone. It's a blanket. It's a klal. I'm part of the klal, therefore I'm part of the protection. 1 second. But ozer is more now to me. But the king, the person who's ozer can be far away. I can receive a cash, from someone from far away, and then I can get ezra. I can get help. I don't have to be close to that person to give them ezra from a distance point of view, right? So ozer is closer than the melech, but not very close. Moshiach.
Redeemer knows exactly what you need to.
Moshiach. What is that?
Savior.
Closer or further?
It's closer.
Closer.
Prove it to me.
To be Moshiach, to be a Moshiach.
Mr. Baal Koreh, prove it to me from the Torah.
It's a heavy question.
From a pasuk.
Yes. What happens for a na'ara me'orasa who's engaged, right? Who has kiddushin, okay? And she is in the field and she's raped. What does the Torah say? The person who raped her is killed. But not he's killed, okay? But the na'ara me'orasa, what does it say? Don't do anything to why? Why? Because she screamed out in the wilderness, in the en Moshiach la. There's no one to save her. In order to be Moshiach, a person has to be close. Whereas when the Na'ara Me'orasa is in the city, the expectation is that if she screams out, what's going to happen? Someone's going to help her. So the fact that she was raped means she didn't scream. Again, I'm not saying, God forbid, about rape. I don't want to make any. Just what is the Torah describing? Why is there a difference for how it's treated when it's in the field versus when it's in a city? Because in a city, there are people around. So clearly she screamed out and someone would come to help her, which means there's a closeness. Whereas when she's in the field, there's nobody close. She's alone. And Moshiala. So the word Moshiach is help, but closer than Ozer. Yes? Last one. Magen.
Shield.
Where is the shield?
Right in front of you.
It's my shield, and it's right next to me. It doesn't get closer than a magen, because in a magen, what do you do in the olden days? You'd have the sword in the right hand, and you have the magen in the left hand. Then where do you keep the magen? You keep it close to your chest. You don't want to have the sword penetrating, so the magen is here. So magen is the closest. Melech, Ozer, Umoshiach, Umagen, which means God has all four of those attributes, one being all four. And that's the kavanah person every day when he's in the tefillah. Melech, Ozer, it's closer. And how does the bracha end? Baruch atah Hashem, Magen Avraham. Why does it end Magen Avraham?
Magen David?
We're going to get to that in a second. Why not? Why Magen Avraham? Anochi magen lach sicharecha harbe meod. Where does it say that? In Lech Lecha. God says to Avraham, Anochi magen lach. I am a shield for you. Only Avraham it says that. Therefore, magen Avraham. So even though God is a shield for everyone, in the Torah, what does it say? Anochi magen lach. I am a shield for you. Therefore, we say magen Avraham. Even though the bracha is talking about all the avot, the one that's clearly written in the Torah is Avraham. Now we have another bracha called Magen David. When do we say Magen David? Only one time.
Yom Kippur?
Only Yom Kippur. Come on, that's not a trick question. You said it yesterday. You don't even remember.
The brachot of the
Of
Haftarah.
course! In the brachot haftarah, we say Magen David, right? The later brachot, the brachot afterwards. So anytime you're reading a haftarah, one of the brachot of the haftarah is Magen David. But that is not in the tefillah. Why not? Really, it's not going to say Magen David. It should say Magen Avraham. But it say Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avotenu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak Elokei Yaakov. Why doesn't it say Elokei David? Who asked that question? David HaMelech asked that question. David HaMelech said to Hashem, why in the tefillah doesn't it say Magen David? Why is it not David?
Did they have the tefillah? I thought the tefillah was.
Okay, there was a way to pray before. The Anshe Knesset Hadolah gave a formulation for the tefillah, but it doesn't mean people didn't use aspects of the tefillah before.
Pre-Anshe Knesset Hadolah. Right.
So David HaMelech, it's in the Gemara. David HaMelech is asking, why in the Avot am I not included? Now, why should he be included?
He's Malchut, he's the last.
Of course, he's Malchut. What do you mean? The goal is to connect Kudsha B'chu Ushchintei. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet. That is the major part of the Vav. Yes. So now the question is, what about David? It's a reasonable question.
You have been in Yerushalayim.
But that's not in the Avot.
He's not an Av.
He is an Av.
Shlosha Avot. I know the song.
I get it. Okay, but let's go a little. Let's follow through on this. Okay, David is asking a legitimate question. He's Malchut. The whole goal is to connect Kudsha B'chu Ushchintei with Malchut. Yes, that's Shechintei, right? So David is asking, why am I not in the Avot? And why should it be in the Avot? Because it's connected. So what was God's answer? It's crazy. God's answer was,
until Amalek is destroyed.
that's not God's answer, but maybe we can learn it out. God's answer was, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were tested. You, I didn't test.
Unless you asked for it.
All that process?
Wait, the Michal business. You asked to be tested and I tested you.
You want to hear how the story goes? Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were tested. You, I didn't test. So when God says to a person, I didn't test you, your response should be, thank you so much. David HaMelech said, test me. Quotes a pasuk in the Tehillim. There's a pasuk in the Tehillim that says, test me. So Hashem said, okay, I'm going to test you. I'm going to do more than I did for the Avot. Because when I tested the Avot, I didn't tell them what sin I was testing them in. You, I'm going to tell you what sin I'm testing you in. I'm going to test you in Arayot.
You pick an open book test.
I'm going to give you an open book test. I'm going to test you in Arayot. So what does the Melech right away do? He knows that God is going to test him on Arayot. So what does he do?
Prepares.
How does one prepare? The right way to prepare is sit in the Bet Midrash and not leave. That's the right way to be tested, because you pagata minuval, a person comes in contact with Yetzara, moshchehu lebet midrash. Very straightforward, right? You bring him to Bet Midrash, and therefore what happens? Everything's fine. Person's learning Torah. That's the guarantee that what? He's less likely to be involved in illicit sexual situations. Yes? Did David HaMelech do that? No. What did he do? He goes to Michal. And what does he have with me? Have relations with Michal. What happens? He figures he have relations with his wife, Michal. What's going to happen? He's going to calm down. He's not going to be excitable, shall we say, right? And he figures he's protected. Then he goes up to the to look out the window, and what does he see? He sees Bathsheba. And that's the whole beginning. That's the whole story with Bathsheba. He has to come, and he has relations with Bathsheba. And the Gemara says, David HaMelech forgot a very simple halacha. There is a small limb inside a man, not a woman, a man.
Inside?
On a man. Okay? A man has a small limb. The more you feed it, the more hungry it is. The more you starve it, the more satisfied it is.
Like a bonfire.
Okay, you can say it's a bonfire. And that was a lesson that David HaMelech forgot, and that's why he made the issue with Bathsheba, which cost him dearly.
Cost him the kingdom.
Didn't cost him the kingdom. How did it cost him the kingdom? Briefly, maybe. It didn't cost him. He was still the king. It cost him a son. The son from Bathsheba, the first son, died, right? Cost him a lot. Cost him a lot of suffering. But he made teshuvah. But that being said, so that's the idea. So David HaMelech wasn't tested. The only avot that were the only people who were tested, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Even technically, Moshe is not tested. Why is Moshe not tested? Now we're going to go to the deeper meaning. Why is it that David is not tested? First of all, the simple answer is because he wasn't able to wouldn't stand for the test, right? What's the deeper answer?
About the coal and the gold. An angel moved his hand, so it's not.
Mashiach comes tomorrow.
Today.
Hayom im bekolot tishmau chazak. All right, Mashiach comes today. Can a person be tested?
Yeah.
No. Why? The world is going to be so filled with the knowledge of Yud Kei Vav Kei, like the seas that cover the waters that cover the seabed. There's not going to be any questions. There's no Allah, there's no Jesus, there's no Buddha, there's none of that kind of stuff. All the questions are removed, so therefore there's no testing. The emunah is going to be evident. It's going to be. That's why I love Rabbi Singer. He says very beautifully. He says, "Why is it that there is no commandment in the Torah for a Jew to believe when the Mashiach shows up? If you talk to a Christian, they're going to say, you don't believe the Mashiach was here. There is no commandment in the Torah to believe in the Mashiach. Why not? Why doesn't the Torah say, when the Mashiach comes, you're going to be tested whether or not you're going to believe him or not? It's obvious. There's no test. When the Mashiach is here, it's obvious. No questions. When there's questions, what does that mean? It's not the Mashiach. Yes? Umale'ah ha'aretz de'at Hashem. Ve'haya Adonai lemelech ha'kol ha'aretz b'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. There's no questions. Right? So therefore, how can David be tested? If David HaMelech represents Malchut, Malchut is Melech HaMashiach, yes? There's no test. Moshe was not tested. Why is Moshe not tested?
Why would he be tested?
How could Moshe be tested? Va'era el Avraham el Yitzchak v'Yaakov el Shaddai u'shmi Adonai lo nodati lahem. You are going to know Yud Kei Vav Kei. There's not going to be any questions. Did any Jew have a question during the entire 10 plagues of whether God's hand was involved? No. No questions.
Was obvious.
On Har Sinai, did the Jew say to himself, wait, is that God or is that something else? Any questions?
No.
No questions.
Obvious.
Obvious. Only when Moshe disappears for 40 days and he said he's going to come back on the 40th day and they miscalculated. Now there are questions. Well, then there's no questions. Before that, there was another time they questioned when they went 3 days without water. Right? So what happened? They didn't question whether God existed. There was no question about God's existence. The question was, Hayesh Adonai bekibenu im ayin. Is God close to us or not? Oh, meaning a Jew, it's not enough for a Jew to believe that God exists. A Jew has to believe that God is close. How do you know? Aseret HaDibrot. Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hoseticha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Why does Hashem have to say that? Why doesn't God say Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher barati et ha'olam? Why doesn't he say that? Why doesn't he identify himself as the creator of the world?
So there's no doubt.
No one was there to witness it. No man witnessed God creating the world. When man was created, the world already existed. So I'm not going to learn that God is close to me from Briyat HaOlam. From Yetziat Mitzrayim, I can learn that God is close to me. Why? He took me out. Individually. That's what we say in the Haggadah. He took me out of it, which means it's a personal relationship. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight. Personal relationship. That's called Magen. Meaning, it's not some random, every Jew, God was Kavyachol their Magen. When there is redemption, then it's obvious. There's no test. That's why God never tested David HaMelech. There's no need for a test. It should be obvious. Why wasn't it obvious? Because the people weren't worthy for David HaMelech to be Melech HaMashiach.
Why was it so obvious there if there weren't any open miracles?
What's that?
Why was it so obvious during David's time?
It wasn't obvious. That's why David asked the question. The question was really a reflexive question. It really is. The Hava Amina that I need to test me is because it's not obvious. If it was obvious David was Melech HaMashiach, if it was obvious that there was the Messianic age, there is no need for testing. Follow?
So
That's why there's no Magen David in the Tefillah. You're not going to need, because when David is not part of the Avot. Why? Because when David is manifest, when the Mashiach is manifest, there is no question. So you don't need test. The only time there's a test is when there's doubt. Again, and the doubt is not God. God knows Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were able to withstand the test. That's why he tested them. The doubt, the test is not for God. The test is for the person to be able to know that they have that emunah, they have that love of Hashem, that they could withstand the test.
But if Hashem knew they were going to pass the test, what's the point of testing?
It's for them.
to pass.
Yes, it's for them to realize. Did Avraham Avinu inherently know that he had the ability to bring his son a sacrifice on the altar? Didn't he? The prophet doesn't mean that they know everything. Did he inherently know that he would be able to survive that test? He didn't know.
He didn't know that angel was going to come and a ram was going to do
He had no idea. So therefore, when the fact that he was willing to do it, he wakes up in the morning and takes him right away and all that kind of stuff, shows he proved to himself that he does have the ability to overcome his midah of chesed. That's
When
Avraham.
come, why? He's just following
Because he was going to
instructions.
sacrifice. That's
Okay,
why.
let's go a little deeper. When does Sarah die?
After that, Kedah?
After that,
Why after the Akedah? Don't give me the midrash with the giants and she saw. That's the guess. I'm not saying it's not correct. So, why is it that Sarah dies after Akedah?
She has no reason to.
What's her raison d'être? What's her reason for existence? She's the din for his chesed. Abraham's chesed is so powerful and so unlimited, he's willing to do chesed with Ishmael. He wants to do chesed with Hagar. Sarah was the one who limited his chesed. Excuse me, hello. Once Avraham Avinu was able to conquer his midah of chesed by the willingness to do the akedah, Sarah has no place.
He doesn't need that extra. He doesn't need Sarah's din to balance his chesed.
That is correct. That is correct.
Only after that, Kedah.
And now go to the next one. Yitzchak was
All din.
all din. What was Rivka? The rachamim.
Because of her.
Because Yitzchak was blind. He was blind because if you look, technically, judgment is supposed to be blind.
Oh, lady judgment is
Yitzchak is blind. Why? Because judgment is blind. Human judgment is blind. I cannot look at the person to see whether or not he deserves the punishment or not. If he committed the crime, he deserves the punishment. That's it. There's no clemency. A judge, a basar adam, is not allowed to have mercy vis-a-vis one of the litigants, because mercy to one is cruelty to the other one. If you have a poor person and he owes money, the judge can't say, well, he's poor. Come on. No, he owes money. He's got to pay. If he can't pay, he gets sold as a slave. There's no mercy.
you gotta pay no matter
You
what.
pay. Judgment, halacha, is cut and dry. There's no wiggle room. What's the halacha? This is the punishment or this is the reward. That's it.
No rachamim.
But in Shamayim, of course, there could be rachamim. Hashem can do rachamim. Yes, Hashem, yes. So the idea for Yitzchak is he's all din, therefore he's blind. He's blind to the fact that his son, the Bechor, is Rasha. Until the switch happened, and then he walks into the room without the clothing of Adam Harishon. And now, for the first time, Vayeherad Yitzchak harada gedola. What did Yitzchak tremble? Because he smelt Esav for the first time as he was. And when he smelt it, he knows Gehenam.
Smell the truth.
And therefore what? Rivka was there to balance him, but he had to see it for himself. Like Avraham, Chesed, he had to see for himself that there has to be a limitation on Chesed. Yes? Therefore, Yitzhak had to see there was a limitation on Din. And that's why Yaakov Avinu is Bechir Ha'avot. And that's why Yaakov Avinu has what we call Mitah Shelema. What is Mitah Shelema? A full bed. What does it mean, a full bed? None of his children were Rishaim. Abraham had Yishmael, and Yitzchak had Esav. Because their midot were not, they hadn't yet developed their midot with proper governance. Yaakov is Emet. Emet is Rachamim, which means Yaakov was able to be the Memutza, in the middle. Why was there Shvirat HaKelim? What caused the Kelim to break in the Olam HaNekudim?
Our behavior.
Not our behavior. No. This is the formation of Ra, the Shoresh of Ra. What? Why was there? The first three, when there's no break in the first three, Keter, Chochmah, Binah, there's no break. The first break happens in Chesed. Okay. Why did Chesed break?
You can't have too much chesed. You need word to balance it.
Therefore, it broke. It thought, I can do it by myself. Ani emloch. Broke. Then it went to Gvura. Gvura said, I can do it myself because they were in a line. Hesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod. In a line one after another. So therefore, since they were in a line one after another, what does that mean? Each one thought they could do it by themselves. And they broke. What's the Olama Tikkun? This is the Idra Rabbah. This is what we hopefully will talk about tonight. What is the Olama Tikkun? Which is the world we're in now. What is the Olama Tikkun? Called Matkila. What's Matkila? Balance. Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. They're not in one line. They're in three lines. Chesed line, Gevurah line, Rachamim line. And what's in the middle? What's in the middle? Rachamim. Emet. That's in the middle. It's Mavriach. Ben HaKatzeh el HaKatzeh. That's from the building of the Mishkan. What did it say? V'haberiach hatichon mavriach min HaKatzeh el HaKatzeh. You build a big building. What is the most important part of that building for it to stay up, for the roof to stay up? You need that I-beam that goes down the middle. You see this room here? This room here has no columns, right? No columns.
There's a steel beam in the roof.
There must be. And generally, it's from here all the way to there, there's an I-beam. That's probably a foot, a big piece of steel that goes from here to here. Otherwise, how is the roof staying up? Think about your sukkah. Okay? The middle beam that you have starts bending, right? Because it's a temporary dwelling. If it bends here, then the whole thing falls apart. So there has to be b'riach hatichon. So in the Mishkan, there was, and what does that do? That holds up the entire roof. That's the Tiferet. That's the middle. That's the Memutza. That's the world of the Tikkun.
So Tikkun is realigning them, right? They were aligned. Now they're separate. We have to realign them again.
No. Olama Tikkun is now, that is the way it was intended to be from the beginning.
Three separate lines?
Why did God initially do it this way?
You mean
Because the world was
one
created
column?
with?
Why was that the way God did it initially?
No idea.
Very simple.
They're supposed to be only.
There needed to be the creation of Ra. Through the Shirat HaKelim is the creation of the Samach Mem, it's Sitrach Ra.
So you have them aligned. Then they break.
So they align and they break and they fall. What does it mean they broke? They broke and they fell. Maybe one of these days we'll do a little Etz Chaim, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Each one of those sfirot fell. What's that called? In spiritual world, when you fall, what's that called? Death. What did we say before? Closeness is life. Distance is death. They got further away from the Ein Sof. They fell into the world of the Bria. They fell into the lower. Therefore, that's where Ra is. The beginning of Ra is in the world of the Bria. It's most manifest in the world of the Asiyah. There is no Ra in the world of the Atzilut. So what happens is, initially, when you have the Kelim one-on-one, they break, and then they fall, and the Tikkun is I don't want to say creation, it's a bad word, is the correction of Atzilut. And that's the world of Atzilut. Atzilut always existed, right? But the question is, correct. But the Chidush, it's Chadash. So what's Chadash about the Atzilut? There's something Chadash. What's Chadash? Its ability to be seen. That's what Ramchal says. Okay? Part of that Hidush is what? How is it viewed? How does it look? How does it appear in the imagery? And it appears what's called Matkela, balance. That's called Olama Tikkun. That's the world of the Brudim. Akudim, Nikudim, Brudim. You guys know what I'm talking about? Okay.
Sheep.
We have to study a little Etz Chaim. Okay.
Got it, cheap, speckled sheep.
Okay, that's
That's
but again, where do we learn? What are they called? They're called the Malchin Kadmain, the original kings. That's what they're called, the Shvirat HaKelim. And what does it say? There was breaking or there was death. Why death? Because they fell. And that fall of the Kelim is the beginning of Ra. All of this was b'chavanat techila. It's not that they broke and God didn't realize they. It was purposely done that way. So they would break, which would allow Ra to be created. But Ra is a creation, not direct, it's indirect. Okay?
How is it an indirect creation? Because of the Shvirat Kelim.
Correct, it's indirect.
Like let there be light or sprout forth vegetation. Yeah.
Choshech already exists. So we see the concept of darkness, whatever that means spiritually, right? What does it say? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz ve'aretz hayta tov v'vo v'choshech al pnei tehom. Where's choshech?
First.
It's already there. Vayor.
If you have yesh ma'ayin, the ma'ayin is the darkness.
No, big mistake. Oh no. Dark ayin is unlimited or. What's the choshech?
So if you have
What's the choshech? What's the choshech?
Absence of light.
Thank you for your physics knowledge. What is the choshech? You're not wrong, but what? Let's go kabbalistically. What is the choshech? Limitation.
Separation from God, limitation. That?
You said separation from God. I said limitation. God had a ratzon to create a finite world. The first step in creating a finite world is to create the concept of finite.
Huh?
To create the concept of limitation. That does not exist, or we'll say it in a different way. Within infinity, limitation is canceled. There is no limitation in infinity. It's there. It exists, but it's not. It's canceled out by the overwhelming infinity of light. So therefore, is there darkness in there? The concept of darkness exists, but it can't manifest itself because it's overwhelmed by or.
So you contract that. Or you
First thing you do is called a tzimtzum. What is that?
hold it back, limit it.
That's a concept of the concept of limitation. Choshech is first.
But Ein Sof is.
And what's or? What's or? Or.
Light
is unlimitedness. Unlimited.
Light is unlimited.
That's not created, is it?
No.
Okay, so what does it mean he or? It implies that it was created. It's not created. What does it mean he or?
What is the representation of Hashem? One of the
You-
manifestations.
To make or be visible. Or
Kav. The kav that comes into the halal. It's not created. It's from the Ein Sof. It always existed. First is the halal, the concept of limitation. And then within the halal is placed nitzchiyut. That's the kav, directly connected to the Ein Sof.
so how does it not go light, dark, light instead of dark light?
Well, because first is light. There's
why are you
infinite
saying
light. Then there's the concept of limitation.
Oh, because you have infinite light.
And then there's the
And-
concept of cancellation of limitation.
So you have unlimited light. Then you have.
Okay, it's not light. We understand let's be careful. It's an anthropomorphism, correct? Okay.
Unlimitedness.
Unlimitedness. Yes,
Then you
okay.
have limitation.
Then you have the creation, or you have the manifest,
limit.
the ability for limitation to be viewed. Because within Ein Sof, limitation might exist, okay? But it's canceled out, which means technically it doesn't exist.
Okay, so the ability for this limitation to be viewed, and that's darkness.
That's darkness.
And then from there you have Vayehi Or.
And then what happens into the darkness comes the Kav, which is Nitzchiyut again. That's that
Okay,
picture.
The ability to see. So it's everything was okay. So you
And
have
that
the ability to
Kav
see darkness,
is
and
the
able to see
soul for the world.
Kav.
The juice that's behind. Remember, the Sfirot are lenses. Yes? The purpose of a lens
Filters.
is to filter or. The or that comes into the halal initially is infinite. It's unfiltered.
We cannot deal with it.
That's the keter. The first sphira is the keter. That's unfiltered. Yes? So therefore, we have no ability to understand the keter. The first sphira that comes to a point where we can begin to understand at low level is chokhmah. That is the beginning of where man can understand. It's chokhmah. Besimana tava bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. What is bereshit? Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. What is reshit? It's chokhmah. That is the first place that's after the bet that allows us to comprehend. Anything that is before the bet, which is ayin, aleph, alufo shel olam, is incomprehensible. So we see contained within Breshit, that's the message. Taking away my whole show from tonight.
You're practicing.
I'm practicing.
So Vayehi Or, that's not actually created; it's just manifested. So
We have Yehi Or, whatever that means in Maaseh Breshit physically, but we have also, remember, the Torah is talking about the creation of the physical world, but it's hinting to the spiritual world, the manifestation of the spiritual world, which of course was first. Why do we have the physical world? So we can have a view of what the spiritual world is. So when the Torah says choshech hapnei tehom, right? What does that mean? The concept of the tzimtzum. Or, that's the concept again. That already happened before Breshit. Do you understand that?
What happened?
What I just said. Breshit is talking about the creation of the physical world. Breshit bara, that's the world of the Bria. What I'm talking about is the world of the Atzilut. That's before Bria, that's Ayin. But the setup of the world of the Atzilut so it can be viewed, so it can be perceived to some level by human beings, that's what's happening in the spiritual world before the bet of Breshit. But through the bet of Breshit, what happens there, we understand back how it happened in the spiritual world. But a person has to be careful. Once again, these are anthropomorphisms. Yes?
You're not saying God is waving a magic wand.
Or is an anthropomorphism. Darkness is an anthropomorphism. Mayim is an anthropomorphism. Shamayim is an anthropomorphism. The Torah speaks in the language of man. That's why Breshit is so fascinating, because in there is also how the spiritual worlds were created. Anthropomorphism, that's the English word. Okay, we're back to the Shaare Orah. We got a little off the wagon. A good place. Back to the Shaare Orah.
Mm-hmm.
We good? Okay. Kasher Adam mitorer mishinato. What does the shofar represent? A person waking up from their sleep. Right? What does the shofar do? What does it do to a person? Causes hitorerut. What is hitorerut? Wake up. Meaning what? Today's Yom Adin. Wake up.
What about the shofar during Elul?
That's a custom.
We're just talking about the shofar in Rosh Hashanah.
I'm talking about the shofar in Rosh Hashanah. Yom Teruah Yelechem. That's from the Torah. And there are Sfaradim that don't blow shofar in Elul. That's an Ashkenaz custom. I know certain Sfaradim blow shofar during the Gimel Midot. The Halabim do not.
Not at all during the
No.
Mitzvot and not at all during Elul.
They do not blow during the Gimel Midot. And I think they only... Do they blow during the Tit Gabal? Yes, I think they blow during the Tit Gabal. I have to double check that. It's been a long time since I've been in a Halabi Shul on the but they do not blow in Yom Midot. That's for sure not. Okay, but that's custom. That's not chiyuv. The chiyuv from the Torah is Yom Teruah, is Rosh Hashanah. Yes. Okay. So what's the purpose of the shofar? Wake up. You're sleeping.
To confuse also the Satan, right?
I thought it was a connection.
Let's go one at a time. Okay, I'm going to let you answer your own question. Think about what you just said. You're thinking correct. It's a connection. How does it connect you? How does it connect you?
By the sound.
How does it connect you? Just the sound alone?
No.
What's like a magic potion? You blow shofar and suddenly you're connected? How does that work? Here's the better question. Why are you disconnected? If you're getting connected, then of course, what does that mean? Why are you disconnected? Because you're sleeping. The shofar wakes you up. It's called hitorerut. What type of hitorerut? Lamata. Verstehst?
Yes.
Okay? So when you hear the shofar, what happens? A person trembles and they realize, oh my God, it's Rosh Hashanah today. And then there's a resurrection of the person's self from being sleeping to waking up. And then they get connected.
We are sleeping awake.
So you said the same thing. Hitorerut and connection is the same thing. How does a person get connected? By waking up. When a person gets connected, they have to be awake. They can't be sleeping. They have to be awake. Okay? What do we call sleep?
60th of day.
Oh, why is that? Because you're disconnected.
Sometimes you are present. I mean, you're physically present, but you're disconnected because your mind is somewhere else.
Your neshama is neshamayim. There's no question. Your neshama is never disconnected. Neshama is always connected, right? But when a person is sleeping, their ruach and their nefesh are disconnected.
When he's physically sleeping?
Yes. That's why sleep is 1/60th of death. That's what the Talmud says.
Yes.
Why is it 1/60th of death? A person's not dead. They're alive. They have a heartbeat. Why are they considered to be 1/60th of death? Why is that? Because they are disconnected. A person can be alive in the Bet Knesset and be disconnected. How? Having conversation. Disconnected. Death.
When you're interrupting somebody else doing tefillah, you're disconnected.
Disconnected. Death. Okay? Let's continue. Kasher Adam mitorer mishenato, when the person wakes up from his slumber, vezocher et Hashem yitbarach. What does the shofar do? The person wakes up, and what happens right away? They remember. What do they remember? They remember the shofar. As Hashem yitbarach zocher oto. What does that mean? God doesn't remember you until you remember Him. That's called itaruta dilatata. So Yom HaZikaron, it's not Zikaron for God. Ki zocher kol hanishkachot ata. What does this mean? Ki zocher kol hanishkachot ata. There is nothing that God forgets. You remember what's forgotten, kavyachol, when we remember what's forgotten.
Otherwise, we're disconnected.
Otherwise, we're disconnected. Az Hashem Yitbarach zocher oto ke'oto inyan shehu zocher b'Hashem Yitbarach. The more, and it's not a static amount, the more the person remembers God, the more kavyachol God remembers him. I'll say it another way. The more you remember God and connect, the more shefa you draw down. Same topic. Okay? The Amru Chazal, and our rabbi said, Masechet Rosh Hashanah, Sheshofar kevan de zikaron ka'ateh kilifanim dameh. Because the shofar, and this is something amazing, I learned this actually last night. I sort of heard it before, but I actually found the word is in the Zohar. All of the Talmud, all of the Midrash is coming, in addition to teaching halacha, is coming to teach sod. We may not be able to understand what the sod that's being taught is, but make no mistake. That's the reason why Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, it's the deeper reason why he put in the accepted and the rejected opinions. Why would he do that? Simple answer is he put in the rejected opinion, so later on no one would say, well, he didn't know about this. No, that's the opinion we knew about and it was rejected. That's the pishat. But the sod is, we learn something from the accepted opinion, we learn something from the rejected opinion. All of that is sod.
That keeps the balance.
That keeps the balance. Very good. Then, so the shofar, because it's for zikaron, it's like lifanim. What is lifanim? When we say lifanim, what does it mean? From the Torah. Okay, that's something else. When the Torah talks about lifanim, what does it mean?
In front of you.
In front of?
Hashem.
Correct. Meaning?
Face to face.
As opposed to lifanim. What is lifanim? Panim is face. Face to face. Okay, that's a reestablishment of a healthy, good relationship is when face to face.
Just like the Kerubim.
Just like the Kerubim, correctly, face to face. Well, when we're doing properly, then they're face to face. Shashofar magia liftoach et shoresh ha'olamot. The shofar goes to open up the root of all the worlds. Le'orer zikaron, to rise up, to awaken the zikaron. What did we say zikaron is? That's the yesod. The yesod that is mashpia, that gives shefa to the malchut. That is the zikaron. Where do we learn that from? From a word inside zikaron, what's there? Zachar. Zachar is male. The yesod represents the male limb. Shu haratzon l'kiyum ha'olamot, and that is the ratzon for the kiyum, the existence of the worlds. That's what he said it before. Mehadesh et mitziyut b'chol shana v'shana. Meaning what? That there's the desire, the ratzon for the kiyum of the world to continue over and over again. That's the ratzon that he's talking about here. Berachamim v'tova, but the world can also exist in din. We want the world to exist with rachamim. So therefore, what do we have to do? We have to raise it up and bring it down from the ratzon. What's the ratzon? The ultimate rachamim that is without, God, the flies here are killing me. The ultimate rachamim that is unlimited is the keter. That's unlimited rachamim to those who deserve and those who don't deserve. The tova al yedo adam yotze b'dimus. When the person comes out of the judgment properly, then he's able to get shefa, which means he changed who he was. He adjusted his keli, and now he's able to receive shefa that is from the chesed, or from the rachamim, rather from the din. It's not that the din changes. Nothing changes. What happens is he's able to achieve through it or a root. Another word for that is teshuvah, what then happens? He's able to access the chesed and not the din.
Teshuvah helps you with that.
Yes. Which means that technically when there's din, chesed is available. The reason there's din is because people have done things to make it so they're only receiving shefa from the left side. Very, very simple. All you need to do is open up the pipe and you receive shefa from the right side. There's no change in the pipe. There's no change in the shefa. The change is in the pipe. And the pipe is the communication, which means you have to raise up to open up that pipe. You have to do the rotoroo job. Ayen Shar Aleph Biur Inyan Sefer Chaim Shehu Lamshich Chaim Min Abina Shenikret Elim Chaim Kmo Shenibayar. And then he says, also look in the first Sha'ar, where he explains the concept. What does it mean, Sefer Chaim? Kotvenu beSefer HaChaim. What does that mean? From a Kabbalistic point of view. Write us in the book of Chaim. What is the book of Chaim?
Life. Yeah. So what?
Sfirot. Lamshich Chaim. What is the source? What is the makor of Chaim? Bina. Em kol chai. Feminine. Em kol chai. The mother of all life. Of course, everything comes from the Keter, yes? Or comes from the Ein Sof, right? But it's the Bina that distributes the Chaim. Tien nishmato tzuro b'tzror Chaim. What is the tzror Chaim? That's the Bina. The source of Chaim. Shenikret Elohim Chaim, and the Binah is called Elohim Hayim. Commotion Heat Bayer, like it's explained above. Okay? Mizmor le David lahaskir. Now he's going to, there's a Mizmor in the Tehillim, I'll tell you which one it is. 38, chapter 1. Chapter 38, verse number 1. Mizmor le David lahaskir. I want to get to the Tehillim, we'll look at it inside. Bi'era Pardes, Pardes Rimonim, Charlie? Pardes Rimonim, Ramak, Sha'ar Kaf Gimel, Kol HaMefarshim Hiskimu Heyot HaZechira B'Yesod. All of the Mefarshim agreed that the Zechira is in the Yesod. Yes? We talked about that? Okay. Hine beferush she'en kesher v'yichud l'sfirot klal imlo al yedei hayesod. There is no connection from the below to the upper without the yesod. V'chen hu hi milashon azkarata leHashem. We're going to talk about that shortly. Azkarata, that's by the Sotah. What is azkarata? Also, that word inside is zikaron, zachar. Kmo yizkor kol minchotecha. The concept of to remember all of the menachot, all of the vegetable offerings. Ki hakavana al hayesod hakosher hamidot kulam. Because the yesod basically ties all of the midot together. It's the end of the, which midot we talking about?
Yesod.
Which midot is it tied together? It's Zeranpin.
And
The Zeranpin is Chesed, Givrat, Tiferet, Tet. Now let me ask you a question. What is the remez to that in the mitzvot? There are many. What's the most classic one?
well, prayer.
Sukkot. Lulav. Lulav is the yesod.
How do we know?
Take my word for it. And what happens?
You shake it.
Or before we shake it, we tie all of the, there are 4 species, correct? But how many do we take? We take 1 lulav, we take 2 hadas, we take 3 hadas, we take 2 aravot, and we take 1 etrog, which means?
There are plants, one's a fruit, and you tie them
Hold on a
together,
second. The lulav is the yesod. The hadasim are chesed, givura, tiferet, and the aravot are netzach and hod. We take those, and what ties all of those 6 together, the 5? The yesod, and we tie them.
Wait, second. You said the yesod is the lulav.
Lulav.
Okay.
All of the other species, with the exception of the etrog, are tied to the lulav. It's eged, right? We tie up the hadassim, the aravot, to the lulav. Yes? And we take the lulav in the right hand. Why? Because it has the majority of the species. Yes?
I mean the biggest one, the longest one.
It's not, we don't take it because it's the longest one. We take it because it's the one that has the most of the species. Lulav,
You take all
hadas,
three.
arava.
You take all three in
The
one hand.
most of this-
There are 4 species we
So they're
take,
tied together and one is
right?
loose.
We
Yes,
take 3 of the species, we tie them together,
yes.
right? What do we tie them to? What do we tie the hadassim and the aravot to? We tie it to the lulav. Lulav represents the yesod. We just said the same thing here. The yesod ties up, is mikasher, the other 5. Chesed, Givurah, Tiferet, Netzach. What ties them together? It's the yesod. And then what do we do with the etrog? We take it the left hand, we connect it. What's that called? Itaruta dilatata.
But what is it really? It's really Zarantin.
Shem kusha b'rechu ushchinte. Kusha b'rechu ushchinte. We connect them together. We take the lulav in our hand. We don't do like the Ashkenazim, take it upside down. We take the etrog, we make the beracha, and then we pick up the etrog with the left hand, and we attach it, we put it together with the lulav. And then what do we do? What are we doing with that?
Shake it in all 6 directions.
What? We're shaking? Yeah, what are we
Shaking it, You're
doing?
moving it forward and backward.
Keeping the piñata.
We are drawing shefa.
As the piñata.
And where are you drawing shefa to?
From up to your
The lev. The lev up, right? All from all 6 directions, actually. Yes? That is the whole. What we're talking about here. So we see the lulav. It represents yesod, which is mikasher, tying together all of the other sfirot. That's called ze'eranpin.
So what sphere is the etrog?
Malchut. The eged is first with the 3, but they didn't fill the mitzvah yet because you have to get the etrog. Once you put the etrog together, now you fulfill the mitzvah. You've done the mitzvah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
There's 7 pieces. There are 7 pieces. That is correct, and that's why we don't put any chatzitza. How do we tie it together? We tie it together only with lulav. We don't want there to be another species. You might say, it's easy to take a piece of string or a rubber band. I could tie it together much easier. No, we do not add another species.
Well, you
To
can't
the 7
put a string on it.
original ones.
No,
How come I see some people put like
I don't care what you see people do. We tie it with
Yeah,
the
foil.
even the Ashkenazim. What they do when they have the
Basket.
case, which is a problem.
But that's
What's
made
the
out of palm.
what's the problem with the case?
What case?
The case that the Ashkenazim use
Your
when they
hands
put the
aren't
lulav
touching it.
together. The problem with the case is the branches of the hadas and the arava are not touching the lulav itself. They're touching the case. And what's the problem with the case? The case is not lulav. Why is it not lulav?
It is. It's made out of palm.
Okay, beautiful. Can I take a lulav from last year and use it this year?
Oh, it's too dry.
Oh, it's not a kosher lulav. So you don't have an extra species there, but you have a chatzitza. You have an interruption between the hadassim and the arava and the lulav.
Because it's
That's why people go by the sod. Do not use those cases. The case that they have.
like
If you look at a picture of lulav, you'll see it's made out of lulav leaf. And they stuff it in. Not to mention, when they stuff it in, what's the likelihood that the leaves are not coming off?
Well, it's also a problem that they're not on the same
We
side.
tie it
according to the Ari.
directly to the lulav.
Yeah, but each hadas needs to be on either side, and then one needs to be on top.
Okay, there's a way to do it because
Right,
we're trying to.
and that's
Why are we trying to do it that way? How are we trying to do it? We're trying to do it according
So they're
to
all surrounded. The Ari.
all surrounded. That's what we're trying to do. Is all surrounded. The Temanim do it all surrounded. They have like 100 hadas around the
No, that's
lulav.
Chabad.
No, that's the Temanim also,
Wow.
or maybe it's also the Chabad. What are we doing? Why do we put
in a certain configuration?
hadas, one here, one here, and one in the middle. Arava, one on the right, one on the left. Yesod, in the middle. What are we doing?
Making sphere, drawing.
Matkila.
Balance.
No.
Chesed is on the right.
You
That's
got
the hadas that represents chesed is on the right. The hadas that represents the gvura is on the left. The hadas that represents the tiferet is in the middle. The arava that represents the netzach is behind, not facing me. I want the hadas. Behind the hadas is the arava that represents netzach. Behind the hadas that represents gvura is the hadas, is the arava that represents hod. And then I have the spine of the lulav that represents the yesod. This way I am facing the yesod and I'm facing the chesed, gevurah, and tiferet, and behind it is the netzach and hod. What I'm trying to do is make the matkala,
Make
the balance.
So why aren't you putting the etrog at the bottom? Instead to the side.
Okay, let's think about that for a second.
Malchut is on the bottom.
First of all, they have to grow. You have to hold them according to the way they are grown. And the etrog, the major part of the etrog is the meat of the etrog, not the oketz, not the bottom, and not the pitom, right? So you want to take the fruit and attach it, not the pitom. The fruit you attach. And the other mistake people make is they hold the etrog, when you have that case, once again for the Ashkenazim, and I've seen some Sfaradim, the etrog they hold high up. No, the etrog is all the way on the bottom. Meaning you match up, and the key factor is you match up the stems exactly in the same place. So you shorten the aravot, and the aravot should be lower than the hadassim, right? And then everything you do from the bottom. So the etrog, you match up the oketz of the etrog with the bottom of the lulav, and then you have the other two species connected on the bottom. All the stems are on the bottom. That's how the sod. That's how we do in the sod. That's what. No, taut. You're yotze. I'm not saying you're not yotze, but that's not. A kabbalist does not do it that way. Okay? All right. So now we say Pardes is explaining this mizmor David lahaskir. What does this mean? Kol mefashim iskimu huyot zechira b'yesod. The zechira is in the yesod. Hine beperush she'en kesher v'yichud l'sfirot klal im lo al yedei yesod. What we just say, there is no connection between the sfirot. Which sfirot? We're talking about the sfirot to the Zer Anpin. How are they connected? They're connecting through the yesod. Yes? Good. V'chen hi milshon azkarata leHashem. That's what it means in the pasuk azkarata. He's going to talk about that shortly. Kumo yiskor kol minhotecha. Same idea. Ki hakavana al hayesod hakosher midot kulam. Because the yesod is kosher, is tying together all the midot. Technically, it's tying all of the midot together. Why? Because the malchut is separated. And how is the malchut connected? Connected to the yesod, which then connects it to all the other sfirot. Yes? And the language of Zechira is the language of Ketoret. What is Ketoret? Be'inyan azkarata leHashem. V'zeh kavanat David be'omro. And this is what David HaMelech, when he said, Mizmor leDavid lahaskir. Meaning what? Sheperush lekater u'kasher. The word ketoret and the word keshira is the same word. One is Aramaic and one is Hebrew. Kesher and ketoret, it's the same word. Lemachut im shara sfirot ayidei yesod. So therefore, the purpose of the yesod is to connect all the sfirot to the malchut. Let's do one more. Azkarata. What is the mincha of the sotah called? The mincha, the vegetable offering that is brought for the sotah by her husband. We're gonna read it this coming Shabbat. What's it called? Minhat zikaron mazkeret avon. Balkore, you agree with me on that one? Minhat zikaron mazkeret avon. Look it up if you don't believe me.
But we don't know if she had an avon yet.
We'll look at the sod here. The simple meaning is if she has avon, it's going to be known. If she doesn't have avon, it's going to be known. It's the opportunity to see whether or not there's avon there or not. It's a check. Yep. Minhat zikaron magia ad shoresh hareach. Minhat zikaron basically comes to the shoresh of reach. What is reach? Smell. Shu haratzon ha'elyon. Smell is the ratzon ha'elyon. B'shoresh ha'olamot shesham zikaron. In the shoresh of the worlds where there is the zikaron. Let's understand what he's talking about. First of all, before we go inside, what do we know about reach? Smell.
It connects to your neshama.
Okay, what else? So does sight.
It's the midah that Chava didn't sin with.
It's the only midah that Adam and Chava didn't sin with, number one. And number two, what else you know about reach? From an anatomical point of view, the highest of the cranial nerves is the olfactory. They're all connected to the brain. But the highest, the first cranial nerve that comes off the brainstem is olfactory, which is smell. It's also the most primitive sense that we have. Yes? And what do you know about smell? Sometimes you smell something, it brings you back to a place you were before. Music does the same thing. Sight sometimes does that, but smell is very powerful. You might smell something, especially something you don't normally smell, and it brings you back to a memory someplace before. Okay? Like explains the Nefesh HaChaim from Chaim Volozhin. Shaare Bet Paraktet. Ishe reach nichoach laHashem, it says. Ishe, which means a burnt offering. Reach nichoach laHashem, a pleasant smell to God, right? Shlosha diragin. There are three levels. Ishe, reach, nichoach. Right? Ishe, reach, nichoach. Three levels. Kesidran bishlosha ikare evareya achila. And according to the order of the three essential organs for eating. Kaved, liver. Lev, heart. Moach, brain. Let's see on the inside. Ishe bekaved. Ishe is with the liver. Reach, balev. Nihoach, bamoach. That's what Nefesh Chaim says. Now I'll see what he's talking about. She'avodat korban, the avodah of the korban, he lekasher kol hadargin ilain. The purpose of a korban is to connect all of the upper levels together. Lefi seder hishtalshelut ha'olamot, according to the order of the development of the worlds. The gam inyan ha'ketoret, and also the ketoret. Lekasheret kol ha'olamot, to tie all the olamot together. Ad hareach shehu b'moach, until the reach that's in the moach. The Katav Rabbeinu Bachye wrote in Sefer Breshit, Perek Bet, Pasuk Zayin, Shereach kol davar hu zikaron. The reach of everything is the zikaron. Uchinyan shekatuv bekorbanot reach nichoach azkarata laHashem. The Od Katav in Shmot, Perek Kaf, Pasuk Kaf Aleph, Kol makom aser azkir et shemi, every place that I remind you or I remember my name or that my name is remembered. Umilat azkir milishon azkarata. It's the same lashon as azkarata. Shu hamshachat reach. It's the drawing of reach. Aviv. V'yeh azkir et shemi. And what happens? Then you're going to remember my name. Ki'ilu amar ariach et shemi. It's almost like saying, you smell my name. Uro, and it's ubi uro in the explanation of it. Amshichet haratzon lishmi. I will draw the ratzon to my name. What does that mean? What name?
I will bring
What name?
you give a pay.
Okay, why that one?
Wow.
Why that name? What is the Yud Kei Vav Kei?
Everything.
Remember the Kav we talked about? That's Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Kav is Yud Kei Vav Kei. That is the juice that's the behind
From
all
the
the
Keter to
all the
Malchut.
lenses from the Ein Sof. That is the juice behind all the lenses is Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the or.
Straight from the Ein Sof to Malchut.
Yod represents the
The channeling of all the
Chokhmah.
Sefirot.
Chokhmah. The Hey represents Binah. The Vav represents Zeranpin. And the last Hey represents Malchut. And the Kotz of the Yud, the Kotz represents Keter. So Yud Kei Vav Kei,
Go to the first you.
yes. Look at
I
Sefer
didn't know,
Torah.
I haven't seen that.
Look at Sefer Torah. There should be a Kotz on the Yud. That's the best way to do it. We'll look inside. If you want to see, we'll go. There's a tikkun over there. We'll look at it. So we see the Yud Kei Vav Kei is the neshama of the world. That's the nitzchiyut. Why is it in the time of the Mashiach that the name that's going to be manifest is Yud Kei Vav Kei? What about his other names? Yeah. What about his other names? Why Yud Kei Vav Kei? Nitzchiyut. Why is Yud Kei Vav Kei nitzchiyut? What is Yud Kei Vav Kei? Haya, Hoveh, Yiyeh. What's that called? Nitzchiyut. Past, present, and future. Really, it's all for God. For us, it's past, present, and future. In God's world, it's only present. That's why we start with.
And for us, it's not past, present, and future. It's present, past, and future.
Where do you say that in Tefillah every single day?
Everywhere.
Where especially?
Before
Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Yimloch Leolam Vaed. Present, past, future. 100% correct.
Then the Yetzirah changes it, then past, present. No, it's not present first. It's a gift to be alive.
100% present. The past already happened. We can only fix what we are now. And the future, it depends. How much control do we have over the future? Very little. We probably have a little control over the present as well. We think we have the illusion that we have a lot of control over the present, but that may be just an illusion. In Ayen Bibiur Hagrala Safar Ditzniuta, that's another book we should do one of these days. A couple of small area in Parashat Mishpatim. The Biur of the Gra in Safar Ditzniuta, Daf Yod Aleph Amud Bet, Shachotem Ha'elyon. What's the chotem?
Signature. That's it.
No. Chotem is the nose.
Oh, they speak about this in the Idra, right?
Oh,
Chotma.
yeah. Chotma. Look at that. Wow, you speak about that in Idra. How do you like that? You mean the Adam Kadmon there's a concept of chotem. Holy moly, look at that. And there's a concept of Oznaim, and there's a concept of Peh, and there's a concept of Einaim.
The face, the whole face.
Zikna. Okay, now we understand. And what's the Idra talking about? It's talking about the Keter. It's talking about the Keter, which means the Arich Anpin, specifically the Atik Yomin. Atik Yomin is the Keter of Atzilut. We don't understand it, but we can talk about, there's a piece that we can talk about a little bit. That's what the Idra talks about. Shachot ha'elyon shehu keneged ha'yesod l'shem magia reach hanichoach lebasem et hadinim le'orer et harachamim. The chotam ha'elyon is keneged ha'yesod. What does that mean, keneged ha'yesod? What does that mean?
Opposite the Yesod?
Keneged. ears. These two holes here, the nekev. It all talks about the nekev, right? The nekev, right? Ears is not in the middle. Eyes is closer to the middle, but not in the middle. Nose, the nostrils is closest to the middle. There's only one thing closer to the middle, mouth. Mouth is in the middle. Okay? So we see that as we get closer to the middle, what's also in the middle? The yesod. That's what he means here. Shu keneged hayesod, l'sham magia reach nichoach. To there goes the reach nichoach, levasem et hadinim, to sweeten or to make them smell nicer, the dinim, ulorer et harachamim, and to rise up the mercy. One more? 11:57. We got a little more time. One more. Let me see how long this one is. Yeah, let's do one more. Ubimkom zehi hakin'ah. Remember, we're talking about the minchat zikaron. What's minchat zikaron? Sota. Okay? Mazkeret avon, the sota. Ita bazohar, it's in the Zohar, in Parashat Beshalach. En kina lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no jealousy before Hashem. Chutz mikin'ah debrit kadisha. Wow. With the exception of the kinah for the brit. What brit? The brit milah. De'ihu kiyuma deshemat kadisha. The brit milah is the kiyum of the shem. Let's see what he talks about. Kinah shayechet bimkom b'makom shetit kalkel habrit ve'akesher shel kadosh baruch hu im am Yisrael. So kinah is connected to the place where there could be the potential for a mess up. Where is that? The Brit. With me on this one? Putting the Brit in a place where it's not supposed to be. Okay? Or at a time when it's not supposed to be. Nida. Ve'kesher shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu im Am Yisrael. And the kesher of the God to Hashem with Am Yisrael. Shehu kidugmat ish ve'isha. The connection between God and Am Yisrael is like ish and isha. What's that called? Shir Hashirim Asher Shlomo. Isha keni mineshikot piu. It's a love song between God and Am Yisrael. That's Shir Hashirim. V'alchet avodah zara amru Chazal. And what does Chazal say about the sin of avodah zara? What is that called? The chet ha'egel, mashal lekala shezinta bechupata. Chet ha'egel is considered to be like a kala that had an illicit relation under the chuppah.
Wow.
Which means,
Uh-huh.
that's how Chazal look at chet ha'egel, that we were mizaneh, chas v'shalom, mizaneh with outside action under the chuppah, which was Sinai. Maybe we're going to talk about a little tonight. There's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. There's a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. 1 second. Let me get to it. It's not about Chet HaEgel. It's about Har Sinai.
Something with more?
No. צנע ורענה בני ציון במלך שלמה בעטרה שעטרה לו עמו ביום חתונתו ביום שמחת ליבו. What's that talking about? What's the יום חתונתו? That's Har Sinai. What's the עטרה שעטרה לו עמו ביום חתונתו? What's the עטרה?
The it's different crowns that they get?
What is that? Yes, but what's the atara?
The chut, the
Tzadikim yoshvim, ve'itrotehem berashehem, ve'nehenim meziva shechina. That's what the Rambam says from the Gemara of what is the Olam Haba, the Olam HaNeshemot. Tzadikim yoshvim, righteous people are in a state of rest. Ve'itrotehem berashehem, and their crowns are on their heads. What crowns? What is the atara?
well, it's a crown. Talk about the other crown?
Atara. Another word for atara is keter.
Which is a crown.
What is keter? The ratzon. Yes, the ratzon of Hashem. That's the keter. Yes? What is the revealed ratzon of Hashem in Olam Hazeh? Also in the next world, but we're talking about Olam Hazeh. What is the revealed ratzon of Hashem in this world? The Torah. So the atara is the Torah. When the tzaddikim yoshvim and their crowns are on their head, what crowns? The Torah that they learned.
That's where we put the crown on.
Tefillin is called an atara. What is the function of tefillin? Leman tieh Torat Hashem beficha. Which Torah? Torah Sheba'al Peh. Torah Shebichtav doesn't have to be beficha. We have it in writing. You read it, but you read it in writing. Torah Sheba'al Peh is supposed to be by heart. And the tefillin, which is a crown, helps a person to study the Torah. That's the purpose of the tefillin, atara. Because the Torah is atara. What does it say, Pirkei Avot? There's keter keuna, there's keter malchut, and keter Torah. And keter shem tov ole al kulam. But there's a concept of keter Torah. What is unique about keter Torah? You can be a nobody. You could be a mamzer, which is the worst type of zechut a person has. A person could be ani, not the melech. And what happens? When they study Torah, they get a keter, which is better than that of the king and better than the Kohen. That's the power of the Torah to take ani and make him melech. That's correct. What's imo? Tzena or ena, go out and see. Benot Zion, Jewish people. Ba'melech Shlomo, the melech, Shlomo, Hashem Shalom, that's the melech. Ba'atara she'itara lo imo. Who's imo? The bina. Ima, the bina.
The source of Chaim.
The source of Chaim. And what do we call the Torah? Etz Chaim hi lama hazkim ba, which means Torah is Chaim. Re'eh anochi noten lifnachem hayom beracha u'klala. What's the beracha? Chaim. What's the klala? Mavet. Choose the Chaim. That's what the Torah says. So the Torah is the revealed will of Hashem in the world. Now we understand the midrash that says 974 generations before Briat HaOlam was the Torah. Meaning what? Step one, before you create a world, you have a blueprint. What's the blueprint? The Torah. The revealed will of God. That is the Torah.
Blueprint from the Olam, from the Noasia.
A blueprint for all the olamot. That's the Torah. Okay?
Sheba'al Peh or Shebichtav?
Both.
Okay, so you can't have one at that.
One is the tree, and the other one is the branches. Or you can say it's the root. The root is the Torah Shebichtav, and the branches is the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Trunk and branches. Okay. Continue. Actually, the root would probably be the Ratzon of Hashem. The tree is the Tiferet, and the Malchut is the Torah Sheba'al Peh. Okay. Kedugmata sota. And now we understand, what did Moshe Rabbeinu do when he came down from the mountain after he broke the luchot? What did he do? What did he do with the egel?
Ground it up.
Ground it up.
Put it into the fire. Put it into
First he
water.
burned it. Then he ground it up.
Okay,
And then he
water,
gave it, put it in
made it
water.
into drink.
And what does Rashi say? Like the sota. And anyone who had thoughts of avodah zarah died.
And that's way.
Why is that?
That
We
you-
see the connection between the kina'ah of the father, of the husband, and the kina'ah of Hashem. El Kana, God is a jealous God. El Kana, it says.
You're talking about
Yes?
the husband, right?
What's that?
The husband.
Husband, yes. Kedugmat hasota, shehi mekalkelet et brit hanisuin, that the sota is disturbing the covenant of the marriage. The Itab is Zohar, and it says in Parashat Emor in the Zohar, Oto kemach seorim shemivi'ah ota isha, the particular barley that is brought, okay, the barley offering that is brought by the sota, nikra minhat kenaot. It's called the vegetable offering of jealousy, or jealousies, plural. The alda ketiv, and because that it's written, tachat asher kineh lelohav. Who's that saying about? Pinchas. Because what did he do? He saw Zimri and Cosby. He saw Zimri, a Jew, taking his Brit Milah and putting into a place that's inappropriate, and he's a kanai pog'im bo. And what does Hashem call that? Tahat asher kineh lelohav. Hineni noten Lord Briti Shalom. Shakinah nechezet kan, because this is where the kinah is. So anytime there is a mess up with the Brit, whether it be the Brit below or the Brit of the Torah, anytime there's a mess up of the Brit, then you have kinah. Shemisha meshakeh b'Brit, a person who lies with his Brit Milah. What does it mean, meshakeh b'Brit? He puts it in a place that's inappropriate or does things within it that's inappropriate. Zot kina mitoreret alav. That kina becomes wakened up against him. Dimken kanaim pog'im bo. And because of that, what happens? The kanai has the right to kill him. Since he is doing something that is causing kina neshamayim, that gives the permission for the kanai to kill him without a bet din. And all of the kina is basically hafarat brit. Amazing. How does the idra rabbah start? Et la'asot Hashem la'Hashem hafero toratecha. It quotes the pasuk from Tehillim and learns it different than the Talmud does. Maybe we'll do that tonight. V'chol kina hi bimkom hafarat brit be'eshet ish shenisteret imacher. It's with a married woman that goes alone with another man. Barakanti, like it's written in the Rakanati. Parashat Naso, what does he write? She'im chata be'isha o bevat el nechar, o hotzi zera lavat alav. What does the Rakanati say? If the person sinned with a wife, with another woman, or with a daughter, with a Gentile, bat el nechar. That's how the Torah refers to having relations with Goya. Or hotzi sera lavatala, or he hadn't put out seed for that proper reason. Hine chet b'yischata b'yisod olam. He sinned in the yisod olam, which is what? Mekasher all the sfirot together. What is he causing? He's causing kilkul in the shamayim. He's causing a separation, chas v'shalom, between the bundle. Ubechotamo shel makom. That's how high the sin goes. It goes to the chotam of the makom, the nose, which is very high. Ot brit kodesh, the chulei. The zera yotzeh misham hu zera kodesh, And the zera that's leaving in these unfortunate circumstances is holy seed. Hayotze toch yud shel makom, that comes out of the yod, because the atara is representing the yod. And he caused it to be profaned in the tum'ah, or be'erva, or in a forbidden woman that he's not allowed to have relations with, or bevat el nechar, or with a Gentile, or behotzaat zera lavatala, or he wasting seed on the ground. Sheamosi zera lavatala, where a person chas v'shalom is taking zera out lavatala. Timeh bechotamo shel makom. He causes there to be tum'ah in the chotem of the makom. Betnotno korach ve'ezer le'el acher. Because the seed is going where? It's going to the samach mem. It's going to the sitra achra. It's going to what's called el acher. Asher kibel koach min hamakom mahu. And the el acher gets koach from that. Besod kochot hatum'ah. Let's do one more. Hazichronot al yedei el chai. Bi'er ha-meharsha, the Meharsha explained, Berosh Hashanah daf lamed bet, she'achiluk ben zikaron le'pekida. What's the difference between the word zikaron and pekida? We discussed this a little before. Let's see what the Meharsha says. She'pekida hu lezman, ma kemo beyom pokdi ufakati. Pikadon has a time. Vadonai pakadet Sarah kasher diber. What does it mean, the time? What was the time? The malach came and said, a year from now, Sarah will have a ben. Bazman hazeh, right? This time, next year. And so since it was time limited, that's called pakad.
And Yosef Bakotif code, you guys are going to take him out of Egypt at this time?
There's a time. There's an expiration date. You're going to have to come out by then. Pakod pakadi etchem, which means that's the language of when there's a time limit. Aval milad zechira hi bitmidut, but zechira is forever. Zechira is nitzchiyut. Sheyizkor tamid bli kiviut zman, which means he remembers always without any connection to zman. Kegon lezikaron lifne Adonai tamid, Yud Kei Vav Kei, not another name. Zikaron is Yud Kei Vav Kei, because it's tamid. Lachen katav Rabbeinu, therefore our rabbi wrote, Shapikdonot hem b'malchut, pikdonot, which means what? When there's pakad, that's in the sphere of malchut. Why is that the sphere of malchut? Because it is limited, it has a time. She'etzlam mufkada pikadon, because based on that, the malchut is holding the pikadon, the collateral. She's holding on to it for a certain time, and then when that time expires, she releases it. That's the concept of pikadon. And after the malchut gave it over to the tachtonim, he mitrokenet mina pikadon. She becomes empty of the pikadon because she gives it over to the tachtonim. Ma she'en ken zikaron, but the zikaron is not like that. Ganuz b'ma'amakei ha'mahashava. The zikaron is hidden, is deep in the mahashava and the thoughts. V'sham hashefa tmidi, and there is always going to be shefa. The gam acharesh zocher lo omrim kivan sheyatsa zikaron achutza nistilek zikaron mimkamo. Meaning what? Just because he received it doesn't mean the zikaron is finished. The zikaron is always continuous. The zikron milshon zachar, and the zikaron is from language of zachar. Shefa etzlo kashur lemikor velo nifsak. Because the shefa for the zachar is not nifsak. What does that mean? A woman, when she gets to a certain age, is no longer releasing zera. A man don't have that problem. A man 90 years old can make a woman pregnant as long as she's still releasing eggs. So we see the concept of malchut, which has a limitation. The yesod, the shefa from zikaron, has no limit. It's always, it's not time related.
grama.
What's that?
Zman grama.
Oh, now you can learn out very nice. Maybe that's the reason why they're pitur mitzvot hashzman grama, because they already have zman, whereas men
There's
don't
that
have
too.
zman. So we need to have certain zman because our natural state is we don't have zman. Okay, we'll stop here.
Yes.
Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen.